Man, if there is one matchup that has been stirring conversation all week, it is this clash between Buffalo and Houston. And the moment you start digging into how these two teams have changed since that meeting back in Week 5 of 2024, you notice something impossible to ignore. The Texans, a team that once treated their blindside anchor like a crown jewel, decided to flip the whole script. They shipped off their franchise left tackle, a guy with 5 Pro Bowl appearances, to Washington in exchange for a bundle of draft picks. Moves like that are usually reserved for rebuilds or fire sales, not for a squad that believes it is ready to chase a postseason run. But Houston gambled, and so far that gamble has looked more like a self-inflicted wound than a strategic reboot. After letting that cornerstone walk, the Texans tried patching the hole by bringing in Cam Robinson on a short contract worth $12 million for the year. For a moment, it looked like they had their stopgap, but that plan barely made it to autumn. By September, Robinson was already on a plane to Cleveland in a simple pick swap, leaving Houston scrambling again. Instead of leaning on a veteran presence, the Texans tossed the keys to a second-round rookie, Ariani Urzuri, and asked him to hold down one of the most unforgiving positions in the league. The kid has tools, no doubt, but the learning curve has been steep. His grading so far has hovered near the bottom tier among qualifying tackles, and the film shows a player still trying to match the speed, technique, and power he is facing every single snap. And here is where things get interesting for Buffalo, because even though the raw totals for Houston's offensive line do not look disastrous at first glance, the context tells a different story. Last season, they gave up an average of 3.4 sacks per game. This season, that number has dipped to 2.5, which sounds like progress until you compare it to league norms. That figure still sits below average, and the distribution of those sacks reveals the real imbalance. In their losses this year, Houston has surrendered 15 sacks. In their wins, only 10. That split does not happen by accident. When the Texans face a defense that thrives at getting after the quarterback, their protection crumbles. When they face a unit that is softer or dealing with injuries, they survive. Look at the pattern. Their defeats came against the Rams, Buccaneers, Jaguars, Seahawks, and Broncos, all defenses with relentless fronts that feast on disruption. When the pocket collapses on Houston, the rest of their offense unravels. That rhythm, that timing they need to function properly, vanishes. Meanwhile, their victories came against teams with struggling fronts or backups filling key roles. So yes, the sack average might look prettier on paper, but the moment you adjust for opponent strength, the truth jumps out. This line bends under pressure, and against certain pass rushers it snaps. And you can bet Buffalo is circling that weakness like a hungry defense should. Last Sunday, Baker Mayfield slipped away from the Bills' pressure time and time again, escaping for only 1 sack and scrambling for nearly 40 yards with a rushing touchdown to go with it. That kind of improvisation saved Tampa Bay on multiple drives. But Houston does not have that luxury. If C.J. Stroud is cleared, he is dealing with concussion protocol and will not be moving with reckless confidence. And if Davis Mills steps in, he is a pure pocket passer who thrives only when he can set his feet. Neither scenario gives Houston much margin for error against a defensive front that knows exactly where the cracks are. Joey Bosa and the rest of that unit will be licking their chops. When you force Houston's quarterback to stay in that collapsing pocket, the floodgates open. You disrupt the timing, force quicker reads, and suddenly throws that normally hidden stride start sailing or diving. And when you force a team that depends on rhythm to play frantic, that is when turnovers and short fields start stacking up. Buffalo has an opening here, a massive tactical advantage brought on entirely by Houston's decision to experiment at the most important spot on their offensive line. While all that is brewing on the defensive side, Buffalo has something brewing on offense that is just as intriguing. For weeks, the conversation around the Bills' receivers has felt like a broken record. No clear number 1 target. No consistent separator. No go-to player Josh Allen can trust when he needs that tough catch or that sliver of space. But sometimes the solution sneaks up on you from the least expected place. And on Sunday, a new name suddenly stepped into the spotlight. Tyrell Shavers arrived with authority. For catches, 90 yards, a 43-yard touchdown that felt like a spark being struck in the middle of a cold, inconsistent passing game. And the crazy part? This is not even the first time he has flashed like that. Last season, he touched the ball only once, and that one play went for a 69-yard touchdown screen against the Jets. Even in the preseason, he pulled off that insane one-handed grab against Tampa Bay, the one that had fans buzzing and helped push him onto the final roster. The problem was never talent. It was opportunity. On Sunday, he finally got that opportunity. And he did more than catch the ball. He flat-out created windows. According to the tracking data, he led all qualifying wide receivers in separation for the week, averaging 6 yards of space when the ball was thrown his way. That is rare stuff, especially from a player with his build. Standing 6'4", he brings size, wingspan, and physical presence, but still moves like a player much smaller. And Buffalo noticed. He tied Khalil Shakir for the most snaps among wideouts in that game, hitting 30 offensive snaps while also contributing on special teams. What made the timing even more interesting was the absence of Keon Coleman. Coleman has normally seen more than half of the team's offensive workload whenever he is active, but his disciplinary inactive opened the door for Shavers to slide in. And once he did, he made a loud argument for why he should stay. Even with Joshua Palmer returning, Shavers carved out a role that felt earned, not borrowed. Palmer himself brings reliability from his years in the league, but Shavers offers something that has been missing for Buffalo all year: a big, fast, fluid target who separates decisively rather than by brute force. And that might be the key to rebalancing this offense. If Coleman returns, he still has a role, but maybe not the central one he's been handed so far. Instead of forcing him to be the focal point, the Bills can shift their emphasis toward the trio that actually move the ball with rhythm: Shavers, Palmer, and Shakir. All three bring different strengths, and when they rotate as complementary pieces rather than overlapping redundantly, the offense breathes easier. For the first time in weeks, Buffalo's passing game looked layered again. It looked like it had options, mismatches, and routes designed to stress defenders rather than place all the strain on Josh Allen's heroics. Between his size, his hands, his knack for creating space, and his willingness to contribute on special teams, Shavers feels like the kind of player who can quietly become essential as the season moves deeper into the playoff chase. When you find someone who checks that many boxes, you do not push them back to the sidelines. You build on that momentum. And as the Bills pivot toward integrating Shavers more prominently, the ripple effect on their offensive strategy is already visible. The sheer physical presence he brings to the field forces defensive coordinators to adjust, opening up lanes not only for himself, but for everyone else. Defenders can no longer key solely on Shakir or Palmer without risking blown coverage, and that dynamic spacing can create an entirely new rhythm for Josh Allen's passing attack. Allen, who thrives when he can make quick reads and exploit mismatches, suddenly has a target who can turn a contested catch into a highlight reel play. The confidence this kind of weapon instills cannot be understated, especially as Buffalo moves toward a stretch of games that will test both their offense and defense under pressure. Houston, on the other side, is walking into a storm they're ill-prepared for. The Texans' offensive line, already fragile, faces a Bills pass rush that has been finding its groove at just the right time. Joey Bosa, who has been a constant nightmare for opposing quarterbacks all season, is at the peak of his form. Add to that the supporting cast, players who understand timing, angles, and leverage, and the Houston quarterbacks may find themselves with almost no room to breathe. Whether it is Stroud, if cleared from protocol, or Mills stepping in, the story remains the same. The Bills will force the pocket to collapse, and every throw under duress increases the likelihood of mistakes, turnovers, or quick punts that give Buffalo's offense more opportunities. Meanwhile, Buffalo is not just banking on the defensive advantage. They are subtly recalibrating the passing game to exploit these defensive weaknesses, turning Shavers into a focal point without making him the only option. The interplay between Shavers, Palmer, and Shakir creates layers of threats, stretching zones and forcing defenders into impossible decisions. Each route, each cut, each timing window is designed to capitalize on separation. And when you have a receiver like Shavers who excels at creating that space, the effect multiplies. Defensive backs are constantly recalculating their positioning, which buys Allen milliseconds that can be the difference between a sack and a perfectly timed deep ball. This transformation also alleviates some of the pressure on other receivers. Coleman, for instance, who has struggled with consistency, can now function as a complementary piece rather than the centerpiece. By redistributing snaps and responsibilities, the Bills are creating an offense that feels more balanced, less predictable, and ultimately more dangerous. With Shaver stepping up and the other receivers adjusting their roles around him, Buffalo is not just patching holes. They're building a multi-layered system that can challenge any defense over the long haul. And the timing of this evolution could not be more critical. As the season heads into its decisive phase, every matchup matters, and exploiting Houston's current vulnerabilities offers a chance to not just win, but to make a statement. The Texans, having already shuffled their offensive line and relied on inexperienced talent, are vulnerable to pressure-heavy schemes. Buffalo's front seven, with its mix of speed, strength, and tactical awareness, can turn those vulnerabilities into game-altering plays. Every sack, every hurried throw, every disrupted timing route amplifies the advantage that Buffalo already has on paper. And when the offense combines this with the new rhythm they are developing through Shaver's emergence, the result is a team hitting stride on both sides of the ball. Offensively, the Bills are also experimenting with creative formations to maximize these mismatches. Motion, stacked receivers, and shift patterns are all tools designed to force Houston's linebackers and safeties into difficult reads. Shaver's height and separation ability make him ideal for layered passing schemes that threaten multiple depths and angles simultaneously. The beauty of it is that the defense cannot focus on a single matchup. They're forced to defend a multifaceted threat. This layered complexity means Allen can pick the most advantageous matchups, and defenses are left vulnerable whether they blitz, drop into coverage, or try to compensate for the pressure. Meanwhile, the chemistry between Allen and Shavers is developing at a remarkable pace. Allen's ability to read defenses and anticipate separation aligns perfectly with Shavers' knack for creating windows in coverage. That synchronization turns seemingly ordinary plays into explosive gains. A screen pass, a crossing route, or even a short out can transform into a momentum-shifting moment when executed at the right time with precision. The impact is both immediate and long-term. Shaver's presence demands respect, alters defensive scheming, and ultimately makes Buffalo more dynamic than ever before. On special teams, Shavers continues to offer value, giving the Bills additional flexibility in managing personnel. His ability to contribute in multiple phases of the game ensures that he is never a liability, and that versatility keeps opponents guessing. This is crucial in tight games, where field position, momentum, and energy swings can dictate outcomes. Every snap Shavers takes on offense or special teams serves to enhance the team's overall effectiveness, further embedding him as a core contributor. As Buffalo leans into this new offensive structure, the balance between established veterans and emerging talent like Shavers creates a unique blend of stability and unpredictability. Palmer brings experience, Shakir brings consistency, and Shavers brings explosive potential. Together, they form a trifecta that can challenge defenses from multiple angles and keep defenders off balance throughout the game. The coaching staff is clearly aware of this synergy, and their adjustments to incorporate Shavers more prominently while still utilizing their veteran assets indicate strategic foresight and adaptability. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. A quiet murmur around the league has suddenly grown into a full-blown storm after the NFL announced the unexpected cancellation of the matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. What was initially believed to be a routine administrative delay has now taken on a far more controversial tone, as newly surfaced images, leaked anonymously and spreading rapidly through team circles, allegedly show evidence of a sophisticated scheme involving stolen signals. League insiders, speaking only on condition of anonymity, suggest that the images depict personnel connected to one of the organizations intercepting and analyzing material that appears strikingly similar to the Bills' pre-snap communication system. While nothing has been confirmed publicly, the internal chatter is loud enough that many believe the league's abrupt decision to halt the game may be tied directly to these findings. Executives around the NFL are reportedly scrambling to understand how deep this situation runs and whether it could trigger broader investigations. Behind closed doors, players are said to be stunned. Some describe an atmosphere of disbelief, others of anger, and still others of resignation. After all, the league has weathered its share of scandals, but this one feels unusually tense. Coaches, meanwhile, are keeping their responses guarded, privately expressing concern about what this might mean for competitive integrity moving forward. Rumors swirl that both franchises were blindsided by the timing, even if whispers of irregularities have been circulating for days. For now, the official league statement remains remarkably thin, offering only that unresolved competitive concerns made proceeding impossible. Yet the leaked images continue to circulate, fueling speculation that the situation is far more serious than the NFL is willing to acknowledge publicly. Until more information surfaces, the entire football world is left in a strange limbo, caught between skepticism, suspicion, and the unmistakable sense that this story is far from over. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.